Yeah.
I don't know.
It's 3 o'clock in the fucking morning now, so.
I got a good 2 hours in.
yeah, I heard. Yeah, you were Scott tonight.
Well, Scott passed out at fucking 7. Okay?
Yeah.
I passed out after midnight.
It's been that long though.
I didn't take no naps. I've been up since about 7 this morning. Scott gets here, he eats fucking something. And then at midnight he's like, ooh, let's go. Hey, ooh, yeah, time to go.
Too much.
Oh boy.
Alright, boys.
Hey, Mike.
Oh, big.
Just a little something. Alright, good night, Mike.
Fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool out here anyway. For the moment. Sure, tomorrow will be 100 degrees again. It's supposed to be a hot week, actually.
That was an interesting movie.
Different. Space travel with a twist.
Well, at least good on the ammo cans.
Yeah.
I haven't seen 50s in any of the flea markets or anywhere.
No, neither have I. It's a fluke, I guess. Yeah.
So Tuesday, school starts.
No, not
If it
for
hasn't
us.
already started, it's going to start now. I always remember it starting for us. It started after Labor Day, right?
Yeah, always after that.
And then we graduated the end of June.
Yep.
Like very end of June.
Well, now they make the kids go to school longer, learn more shit, pressure them more too. I think education needs a major revamp in this country. And there's too much concentration on shit they're never going to use, and don't need, and have no aptitude for, and not enough on skills they will use, you know? They don't bother to teach them important lessons of history, they teach them fucking bullshit instead.
All the name of, what? Lack of money?
No. Too many entrenched interests who don't want to shake up the system. You know, I keep on the internet over and over again people commenting on how Americans are educated in history, and they'll be talking about a war that happened here or there or whatever, some big event in history that we were never taught in school at all. Yet in Europe, other places, China, they do learn about these things. Oh yeah, it was a documentary about the war between Poland and the Soviet Union in the 1920s, early 20s. And there were a lot of comments. It was YouTube videos, there were comments under it. And one of them was that it was an American educator bemoaning the fact that probably 99% or better of American school students would have no idea this war even took place, even though it was critically important to world history. Only because it stymied Soviet expansionist moves at that time, which could have easily spread to Europe and then abroad. You know, it could have totally changed world history. But Poland fought the Soviet Union to a standstill, pushed them back, made them pay such a heavy price that they were unable to do it again until the time of Stalin, by which time Europe was strong enough to defend itself against, most of Europe defended itself against communism much better. You know, after World War I, Germany was teetering on the brink of a communist revolution, and so was France. I mean, it was a real mess. So if the Soviets had taken Poland in 1920, they could have just gone steamrolling right on. You know, and that's what Lenin wanted to do. But the Poles prevailed. Most people probably wouldn't even know that the Americans actually fought in that war. You know, they volunteered to fly airplanes for the Polish Air Force. Just like they did for France in 1916, 17, the Lafayette Escadrille, and Poland had its own. And do you know that they still remember each and every name over there of those men who flew from Poland? They have a memorial for them. The communists knocked it down. The Poles put it back up again. As soon as the communists were gone, they remember.
We've been studying the war of 1812 because we've been going to all these sites.
Oh, yeah. Another critically important war for different reasons.
We got the history of the Niagara. Guess what they do with the original ship?
What?
Sunk it.
Yeah.
And then guess what they did in the 20s?
Took it back up again.
Brought it back up, restored it, and then guess what they did?
Put it in a museum.
Sunk it.
Sunk it again.
Sunk it again until finally we brought it back up again and then got timbers from it. Now there's a replica of the Niagara with the original timbers in a museum. Well, what the fuck, you know?
Well, you got to remember that at the time, most ships were disposable after 20. I mean, they were wood. You had wood, worm, rot, dry rot, everything else. They only made it for about 20, 25 years tops. And by the end of that 25 years, they were pretty dilapidated. You know, and technology had changed, and there was no need for them anymore, so they were sold to the merchant service, and they were scrapped. That's still done today. That's normal. There's only a very few ships that made such a name for themselves, like the Missouri, for instance, because of, you know, the Japanese surrender and all that stuff. The Constitution, Old Ironsides, you know.
Constellation down in Maryland.
That will be the HMS Victory, you know, Nelson's flagship. These are ships that would be preserved from the, you know, original time because they have had such an impact. They're such a big part of history.
We were at Fort Erie, Fort Niagara on both sides.
Yeah.
Fort Niagara's on our side, Fort Erie's on the other side.
Yeah.
And then nice to see this stuff, you know. They had, he's got some of his furniture, Perry's, you know, his desk, his chair. You know, it's authenticated, you know, good stuff.
Now, unfortunately, you can't preserve all of history because then we'd be overwhelmed with junk all over the place, but you can't preserve some of it.
So again, we saw a special last night or the night before, and she gutted it out to about 3 in the morning. Well, I want to go to bed. I said, okay, whoa, what's that? Well, I recorded the War 1812. Will we watch it? Dang, it's like 12 o'clock at night. And I thought the thing was an hour long, and it was like this movie, and the thing was like it was on Nova. The thing was like 2.5, 3 hours, but it was good though. Very educational.
Battle of New Orleans, fought after the war was over.
Yeah, technically, yes. By about maybe, what, a couple of months, 3 months?
No,
or longer. Or it was
a little short than that. I mean,
maybe
things
a month.
move slowly.
About a month, right?
Yeah, I think it was
about a month. Yeah, about a month, right? And then when they claimed the truce or whatever, everybody was all like, well, you know, yeah, look, you know.
Hey, we still kicked your ass, you know.
They basically, it's accepted that it was a stalemate because.
No, I meant the Battle of New Orleans. That definitely was a very decisive British defeat. The rest was a stalemate because the Brits had their hands full in Europe. They really couldn't fight a war here.
They finally Napoleon was finally defeated.
Yes.
And then the lines, the map lines stayed the same.
Yeah. Well, not in the U.S. they didn't. We got the Louisiana Purchase out of Napoleon.
Oh, well, yeah. But about the Canadian borders, those all stayed the same.
Yeah, those stayed the same.
me laugh because they were talking about when they were torching the slums of Detroit. Is apparently they didn't do a good enough job, and she laughed on that one.
Yeah.
Special, very informative.
Oh, the History Channel, the Smithsonian Channel,
We got all
American
those.
Heroes Channel. They all have specials like that all the time. They have good ones about the American Revolution. A couple of them.
She's more fascinated with the Civil War.
Oh God, those are endless.
Right, yeah, so we're constantly watching Civil War stuff.
That is a war that will be debated to the end of time. And every generation has its own reasons of why it was fought. We don't listen to the people who actually fought it anymore. Now it's politically expedient to say, well, it was a war fought because we wanted to abolish slavery. The average soldier in both sides didn't really give a shit about slavery, because only a tiny minority of people even owned slaves, and the only people in the North who gave a shit about the slaves were a tiny minority of northern, Europe, mostly Massachusetts intellectuals, who had mostly never even met slaves. It was fought because one side believed that they had the rights for their state to determine their destiny themselves.
And the South did it because that was free labor.
Well, for the plantation owners, yes. The average farmer in the South was just a regular, either sharecropper or he was a white man, with a small plot of land or whatever. No slaves to run it, because slaves were hugely expensive, usually thousands of dollars, at a time when that was real money. That was extremely, extremely valuable property. They fought it for states' rights. I mean, that's not the politically expedient thing to say today, because today people think they know better than what people back then fought for. And it's, oh no, they fought it to free the slaves. No, they didn't. They didn't fight it to free the fucking slaves. That's bullshit. Lincoln didn't even free the slaves till 1862. So that's how much he cared about the slaves himself. He had some very negative opinions about black people at different times, his own personal opinions. He freed the slaves because it was a military move to destabilize the South. That's what he was trying to do. Not because, if keeping the black people in bondage till 1865 would have helped win the war faster, he'd have done that too. But today's intellectuals don't want to be told that. They want to think, well, no, it was a war to free the slaves. Yeah, right, okay, you keep believing that. Fortunately, the generation that fought that war, they were a literate generation for the most part. They left a huge volume of memoirs and letters and journals behind. So we know what they were thinking. We know how they felt about the war and why they were fighting and everything else. A lot of them were drafted. That's why they were fighting. They weren't there because they fucking wanted to be. And the volunteers, they were there for just about as many different reasons as there were volunteers. I'm fighting for New York. I don't give a shit about slaves. I'm fighting for South Carolina, because I'm from South Carolina. And Robert E. Lee fought for Virginia, his state, because at that time there was still a very, very strong state identity. Nobody identified with the national government, not really, but they identified with where they came from. Who knows if what we did was right or wrong? Should we have let the South go? Or should we have forced them to stay in the Union? I don't know. That was their decision to make, and that's what the decision they made was one they made. I don't think Texas should have been forced to stay in the Union. They were an independent country to start with. So if they wanted to divorce themselves from the United States, why not let them, Even today, for that matter.
And then we were watching something on the news that they want to separate New York into 3 different states.
That's a good idea.
Really?
Or at least 2. Separate New York City from the rest of New York State.
That's what they're talking about.
Yeah, that would be a very good move. It would save the rest of us a lot of money fucking constantly supporting New York City. And it would make it more fair to the rest of New York that we are not always being dragged along politically with what New York City wants, only because a large concentration of people happen to live in that one small area. Which gives them a disproportionate influence on, the politics of New York State. You have a very big difference between upstate politics and New York City politics.
Mm-hmm.
Theirs is extremely liberal and left-leaning because they want the welfare, they want the support,
Yeah.
and all the fucking entitlements they think they're entitled to from the rest of us. And the rest of the city's red because we're tired of that shit, We pay crippling taxes to support ourselves and them. Never happen, of course, but it's nice to dream. Well, New York City would never allow it to happen, and they hold too much sway in New York State politics.
Someone's in a rush.
Probably drunk. Is that the...
Going to be open today, malls?
Oh, probably. I don't know. No idea.
It's supposed to warm up next week or cool down?
Warm up.
Ugh.
Yeah, we're going to be in the 90s. Good part of it, I think. But at this point, we're heading toward the middle of September. You're not going to see it too much longer. The Walking Dead. I thought they were going to have the third episode on tonight. Huh. Oh well.
Memorial Day week, Labor Day weekend?
Yeah, you would think so, huh? They don't want to overlap with the regular Walking Dead because that's going to, fuck things up. So.
That's what's going to get, well, that's got more following, I think.
Well, it does, but not for, well, it's just the same following,
Yeah.
Each show has the same people, so if they put it on different times, they might do it, but otherwise they're going to go back and forth. 1 week it'll be this show, the next week that show. You're going to get a little confused.
Hope they don't take nobody off the show again.
Oh, sure they will. That's the whole point of that show. People die in that world. That's what happens. Violence and unpredictable. You never know who's going or when. I'm sure they're taking people off. Do every season. First episode, though, there's some of those reactions. Now, in the beginning, when the kid's running away from the dead girlfriend, that is a believable reaction. Right down to the facial expression. Scared shitless, shitting his pants, everything else. Mom and dad there watching their darling boy run over some, kid that they don't even know is dead, but twice,
Supposedly
and then
shot.
not having hysterics about it, That I don't get. I mean, yes, there would be, of course, the element of total disbelief in the event that started to happen. It'd take a lot of convincing to get people to wrap their minds around the fact that dead corpses were being reanimated. But it would be glaringly obvious at some point, Although the conspiracy theorist there, he's right. The government isn't going to tell you. If something like that were happening and they knew it, they would never tell you. Because they know there's zero things that they can do about it. There's no contingency plan for something like that. There's no way to rescue people from it. Where are you going to evacuate people to? And how are you going to keep them safe? It's ridiculous. You can't. It's such a huge negative that you can't even plan for it because there's just no way. It's like evacuations during a nuclear disaster.
Right.
Really? Yeah, yes. I mean, yeah, you throw up some fucking plan and, whatever, it's just so you can say you have one. But everybody knows that plan goes out the window the instant the sirens go off. There's just no way. Instant panic would rule everybody, and that would be the end. Even the Japanese had problems, and they're much more conditioned to follow orders than we are.
How long was that area polluted for?
They just let them back in to the town nearest to Fukushima, whatever it is. I don't know how they cleaned it up, but apparently they say it's okay to come back in. Yet Chernobyl is still abandoned and hot, so I don't know how the hell that's working.
Now, what are they going to do about this? How's that going to stay hot for?
Oh, many lifetimes.
You said about 1,000 years or something?
Well, radiation is measured in tens of thousands of years, not thousands. It degrades with time. Some types of radiation degrade faster than others. But that sort of contamination, all those gamma rays and shit, whatever, that takes a very long time.
My favorite was, so I figured I'd open the window to get a better picture.
Yeah.
And then there's a funny metallic taste.
And my pictures are all blotchy looking at them.
Yeah. Nice little dose there.
Yeah. I gotta hand to the Russians. Nobody ever said they didn't have fucking balls. I mean, those guys that put the cap on that place, they knew they were going to die. They knew exactly what they were going into. It wasn't even hidden from them. They were told flat out, we must do this or the country's dead. It's done. It's finished. And so is all of Europe.
Same thing with the guys on that submarine.
Yeah, yeah,
Go in there and
exactly.
start welding.
Yep. I mean, this is the situation. This is what it is. It's life or death. Yeah, you're gonna die. You're gonna die. Maybe your family might live because of it. You know, that's what you're gonna do. They did the same thing during the war. As the people that understand sacrifice, because they've had to sacrifice so much for so long.
Well, what do they call that? The Fukushima 50?
Fukushima 50.
Yeah, the one that had a good...
Oh, them, yes, yeah. The Japanese did it too. They knew they had to stay. There was no choice. Somebody had to do it. Somebody had to put the fire out. Somebody has to cap the fucking thing. If space aliens want to conquer the world, they know how to do it. Just reanimate the dead bodies. Put tiny robots in the brains of the dead bodies, make them come back to life and thrash around and chase the living. Forget it. Instant pandemonium. We'll have the planet in no time. I mean, it would, you know. Just think what the reaction would be at a funeral if suddenly the casket flew open and the dead person sat up and started chasing
apparently
everybody
that
around.
happened in the Philippines or Mexico.
Well, that was in a tomb, but yes.
Yeah, they were, or no,
And she was dead when they opened it.
No, when they were at the wake there.
No, not at the wake. She was in a tomb.
Oh.
The husband visited the next day and heard screaming inside the tomb, so
Oh,
they broke it
shit.
open. But she had apparently died again.
No, there was one where they were all at the wake there, and they were all in the room.
Oh,
crying.
I'm sure that's happened because
And there
there's.
was recent about a year or two ago.
Yeah,
And then,
I can't remember the name of the disease that basically it can be mistaken for actual clinical death. Even in modern Western hospitals, it's happened. People have been declared dead, brought to the morgue, and they woke up on the fucking table.
Yeah.
You know, it's just some kind of sleep disorder, some really fucked up thing. But and in some South American and third world countries, you know, where burials can happen because the family's poor, they don't have money for embalming and shit. Burials happen quickly. Just luckily for these people, there's no embalming or autopsies and stuff. So yeah, you can be buried alive. It can happen. Just like in the 19th century, you know, back then there was no refrigeration. You had to bury people quickly. You know, you could be buried within hours of dying sometimes.
Or being asleep.
Yes. Used to tie fucking strings to the corpse's fingers, run through a hole in the casket and a tube to the surface were attached to a bell next to the
Yeah, I've
grave.
never seen a patent for that.
Yeah, that was an actual device. It definitely was used with people that had enough money to afford it. I don't know if there were ever any instances of the bell actually ringing, but it was there. I think it recently happened in Germany that somebody was declared dead, brought to the mortuary where they woke up, screaming in a mortuary freezer.
Ah!
Yeah. That doctor is facing jail and a hefty lawsuit from the family of the
How old the person was?
She was 92, I think.
Oh, God.
In a rest home and had a heart attack, died. But apparently after she was declared dead, the medicine worked and her heart started again. And nobody noticed because she's in a body bag by then, I guess, and trucked off to the facility. And I guess you should have been a little more careful, Doc. You you're not going to get the chance to be more careful again because you're disbarred or disrobed or whatever they call struck off.
Yeah, we're soon to be dealing with that in Erie.
Oh, yeah, the guy's not dead yet, Scott.
Okay, you want to go out there and talk to him?
Well, the thing of it is, you're going to do all this work, but you have no legal standing unless he does get. Mike's right. He has to have a will.
Of course he does.
You know?
What do you think Jane's all fucking pissed off about?
Yeah, but that's something that legally it's has to be him or someone the court has designated his representative if he's no longer.
Well, the way what she said is write me a check while you're still alive, and she'll keep the money, and then when the time comes.
See, that's no good either because the family can interfere and say, well, that's nice, but we want him buried over here in this way. We want him cremated. We want him whatever. And that's his.
No, he already bought a headstone in the cemetery, and it's only Karen and Ken over on the other side of Erie.
Yeah, but
his wife is gone. He's got no kids.
He has to have a declared next of kin that's legally binding for them to make decisions about that. I mean, technically, the hospital can't even release the body until they have someone who is legally allowed to take possession of it or give the funeral home the authority to take possession of it. The chain of custody, not otherwise he remains custody of the state. Can end up buried in a potter's field somewhere, because if there's nobody that, they'll go to his closest relatives first, whoever they might be.
Karen
yeah.
and Ken.
And the decisions would actually be left to them if he does not make prior arrangements, legally binding arrangements.
Well, that's what Jane's moaning about.
You got to involve a lawyer. I mean, there's no way around it. You have to involve a lawyer in that. I mean, you can let things slide if you're like a child, or something like that. Or, his kid, his son, his daughter, because then the state will look to you as the next of kin. You don't really need a lawyer for that, but if you're not, then you will need a lawyer. He will need a lawyer. Make it legal.
This is all the drama that goes on out there.
Yep. Thing of it is, he needs to do this while he's alive. Yeah.
That's
because if he drops tomorrow, then it is up to his kids. What happens?
He doesn't have kids.
Well, his nearest living relative.
That would be the niece.
Yes, then it will be up to her. In that parking lot? I think so. Yep, there are.
So after I dropped you off, I went there whenever I dropped you off last time. I went in there to get something to eat. Some girls changing in the parking lot, buck naked, drunk.
Oh my God!
Literally, I was like, "Where the hell was doing with the cat?" It was God Almighty.
3:26 in the morning.
Yeah, I had it on this, but then whatever.
I wonder if the person realized that this camera's all over that building, covering the whole parking lot, high definition. I'm sure that's going to be reserved for the Christmas party. All right, Scott.
I should be on next week.
Yep.
So then, happy.
Yep.
And place your bets, I guess.
Yeah, we'll find out then.
I give it like 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
I give 2 weeks to a month.
That's a wide spread there. Mike's going with 2. I'm going with 2. So we'll see what happens. All right.